listening to Union Strong NJSPBA Voices Podcast. The intro is brought to you by the New Jersey State PBA-owned Federal Credit Union, offering competitive rates and fast loan approval. Visit www.njspbafcu.org. Hello and welcome to episode S3 of Union Strong NJSPBA Voices Podcast. I'm your host, Vinny Rizzo, and today is part one of a special two-part series, Two for the State. One of the most important responsibilities we have as your state PBA is to make sure that you, our members, are fully informed when it comes to the issues that directly impact your lives, your careers, and your families. This year, New Jersey faces a pivotal moment with the upcoming gubernatorial election. And while you'll hear plenty of noise in the media and see endless political ads, we believe that our members deserve something better: direct access to the candidates themselves. That's why the PBA is proud to be at the forefront, bringing you something no one else can: the actual voices of the two people who want to be your next governor, speaking directly to our delegation. Today is Mikie Sherrill. No spin, no filters, no sound bites chopped up for television. Just their words, their tone, and their message, exactly as they delivered it to the men and women of this union. This is about transparency. It's about making sure that before you make a decision, you hear for yourself how each candidate addresses the concerns that matter most to law enforcement and to working families. Whether it's pensions, health benefits, safety, or the future of policing in New Jersey, these aren't just political talking points. They are real issues that affect every member wearing this uniform. By sharing these recordings, we're not just reporting on the process, we're bringing you into the room. You'll hear what our delegates heard, just like when we brought you 7 for the state back in March and April. You'll have the same opportunity to weigh each candidate's words and judge for yourself who is best prepared to lead our state forward. And as a friendly reminder, check out episodes 21 and 23 respectively to hear the candidates' words to our delegation from the mini convention. That's what it means to be Union Strong, making sure our members are informed, empowered, and never left in the dark. We hope you enjoy the episode and, more importantly, find it to be educational.
All right, as you guys know, back in March, we had all the potential governor candidates come in and address our membership at our mini convention. Most of you were there. You heard what they had to say. Now, all these months later, after the primary in June, we now have 2 standing as the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate. For us to have the governor candidates come out in March and then to have them come back to us here in July, it just shows how we are basically putting ourselves at the forefront and reaffirming our importance in politics here in the state of New Jersey, and how influential the state PBA has been, is continuing to be, and will be in the future. So now, right now, we're left with a consequential decision that will impact the lives of our membership. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mikie Sherrill is entering the conference room here.
All right. Thank you. Good seeing everyone this morning. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you having me here today to give me a couple minutes to talk about my thoughts going forward in New Jersey. But first I want to start by just acknowledging the heroism of Officer Islam, who died in the line of duty yesterday protecting New Yorkers. I think it's a pretty stark reminder of the risks all of you take as you protect communities every day, and the debt of gratitude our communities owe to you, so thank you. Standing up for first responders is a critically important issue to me and to anyone who will be serving in my administration. Police officers across the state of New Jersey show up to work every day, keeping us safe, as you know, but also you do so much more. You're really key linchpins in the community, doing everything from coaching our kids, coaching my kids, to putting your lives on the line to protect us. And I'm so grateful for all of the work that entails. After serving for nearly a decade as a helicopter pilot in the United States Navy, I joined the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, first as an outreach and reentry coordinator, working with a lot of law enforcement on getting into different communities that we served, and then as a federal prosecutor. And I worked to build trust between law enforcement and our communities, and I saw firsthand the importance of building those relationships and that trust. It makes all of us more safe. It's why I've become a fierce advocate for law enforcement in Congress. And I was proud to work together with all of New Jersey's public safety unions, including the PBA, to get the Social Security Fairness Act across the finish line, which is now ensuring that retired officers receive the full Social Security benefits that you all deserve and have earned. This legislation was something that many people thought was impossible, but I worked together with both Democrats and Republicans to get it across the finish line. I've also secured millions for law enforcement across the 11th District of New Jersey for critical new technology like ALPRs to make it easier and safer for law enforcement to combat auto thefts and to protect our communities. And I'll continue to do more as governor. Across the state, I hear from officers who love their jobs, love raising their families right here in New Jersey, but too often cannot afford to live in the very communities that they serve. The cost of living is just too high. So we're never going to make New Jersey more affordable if we can't make housing more affordable. As governor, I'll help more families access home ownership and build generational wealth through first-time homebuyer assistance, reduce home building costs by streamlining permitting and reducing delays, especially on already developed sites like commercial properties, which will reduce mortgage and rental costs, while also protecting open spaces, and expand housing options that are actually affordable for families, those starter homes that are simply too hard to find in New Jersey. And I'll be a governor who protects your pensions and health care benefits. I'm going to continue fully funding the pension system, so our police officers have the retirement benefits that you've earned. By continuing these payments, we'll get the pensions funded ratio to the point where retirees can again see cost of living adjustments. I'll implement third-party auditing of the state health benefits program to bring down costs within the plan while still maintaining high-quality care. And this will lead to lower premiums for your members and also reduce property taxes due to lower costs for municipalities. And law enforcement will always have a seat at the table in the Sherrill administration. I've been proud to work closely with law enforcement in my district while in Congress, and that relationship will continue in Trenton. From selecting an attorney general to reforming the Office of Program Integrity and Accountability, I want to work together to keep our communities safe. Meanwhile, my opponent is going to cut your pension, take away your hard-earned dollars, and make it harder for officers to afford to retire in the communities they have spent their lives serving. I have big goals for the Garden State. I've never backed down from a challenge, and I'm ready to work with everyone and stand up to anyone, including my own party, to serve you. While some will paint this election as a Democratic versus Republican narrative, that's not what this election is about. This election is about delivering for New Jerseyans by making life less expensive and keeping people safe. I'll be the governor who pushes more resources, training, and personnel into your departments. I'll be the governor who fully funds our pensions so we can work towards that long overdue cost of living adjustment. I'll be the governor who makes sure you always have a seat at the table and open lines of communication. And so I'm asking you to join me. Together we'll build a safer, more affordable state that supports its first responders and where all of our kids can thrive. So thank you again for giving me a few minutes. I really appreciate it.
All right, Mikie Sherrill has agreed to stick around for a couple of questions. Does anybody have any questions? Now's your chance. All right. Oh, wow, yeah, exactly. All right. Oh, now let's go. All right.
Hey. Hello, Congresswoman. Matt
Hi.
Rogers from Atlantic City, Local 24. I know you had mentioned earlier about the Attorney General, and I believe they asked at the March meeting. Do you have any indication of who you'd be looking at and how quickly we can get out Matt Placken?
Yeah, so I've sat with your leadership to talk about the type of traits you would like to see in an attorney general. As I mentioned, in my administration, law enforcement will always have a seat at the table. And so I'm going to pick an attorney general who works well with law enforcement so we can continue to move our state forward, and it won't be Matt Placken.
Officer Oversoy, Minim Township 402. What are you going to do about the illegal immigrants in the state and having them have driver's licenses and continuing to be a sanctuary state for them? It's a threat to our country, it's a threat to our state, our homeland, and quite frankly, we're all tired of it. Are you going to cooperate with the federal government in terms of detention and deportation?
So I've been very clear. I'm going to follow the law and the Constitution. I believe in comprehensive immigration reform, which means getting control of our borders, making sure that people have a pathway to citizenship who've been working here, paying taxes, can do that legally so that we can end the underground economy that's impacting so many of our workers and labor unions. As far as the job I see that as ICE's job. I see the job of all of you in this room of keeping our community members safe. There is an overlap there, but I would say what I see for police officers here in this state is making sure that first and foremost you're serving the people of New Jersey.
Okay, so ICE does their job. Are you going to allow New Jersey to assist them doing their job?
I'm going to follow the law and the Constitution. I'll see, guys, look, we have people that are not doing that and that are coming in, and it's unclear to me what some of them are here to do. They're not following the Constitution. They're not following process. I've served this country my entire life. I've taken oaths to the Constitution. It's not okay with me. Now, are there legal requirements? I'm a federal prosecutor. I'm the only one in this race who's actually deported people for breaking the law. And I get that. That's what I do. That's what many of us want to see. We don't want lawbreakers here. But at the same time, we also need our officers to follow the law, and that's what I'll require, following the law and the Constitution.
I appreciate your answer. However, I do not think you will do anything to help the federal government, help us, and do anything about illegal immigrants.
You are welcome to think that. I will just say I've served the federal government, I've served this country my entire life. I think I'll do a lot to help this state.
Good morning, Congresswoman. Rising medical costs that we're all going through on an annual basis here. Obviously, in the state of New Jersey, it seems to be a crisis with the state health benefits plan. What kind of framework, what kind of planning are you and your administration looking at right now to combat those costs?
So we've seen the costs go up every year, and right now it's at the breaking point, the state health benefits plan. Immediately, we'll get an independent auditor in there. That should already have been done. That'll track the money and where it's going and what's coming back to the state or what should be coming back into the state coffers. That immediately will save a large amount of money. But we also, I think, have to address the structure of the plan, the multiple plans, so that we can make sure that we're having the best available plan to drive down costs but to best serve people. And right now, we're seeing this all at the breaking point. I know there's a discussion from your leadership about what to do with police and fire and different first responders and how you want to do that. So I'm happy to continue to sit at the table. They also have had some ideas about transparency and accountability, which I've liked, and we've discussed that as well. So we'll make structural things, but immediately getting that independent auditor in there to get under the hood and understand where all the money's going.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Before we get back to the conversation, I want to take a moment to talk to you about the sponsor of this mid-roll, something that's here for you because it's ours. Blue Guardian Insurance is NJSPBA owned and designed with our members in mind. That means it's not just another insurance company. It's run by the people who understand our work, our families, and our needs. Whether it's protecting your home, your car, or your future, Blue Guardian has your back because it's built for us, by us. If you haven't already, check them out at www.pbainsure.com and see how they can help protect what matters most. Blue Guardian Insurance, our protection, our way.
And just to follow up, is Horizon donating any funds to your campaign?
I have to look. I assume they are.
Okay. And finally, you mentioned before that your opponent is going to cut our pensions. So where are you getting that from?
He has not been supportive of full pension payments in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Could you discuss your vote in the Justice for Policing Act?
Just Just need to state your name and your local number, please.
Sorry, Daniel Granado, Metuchen, PBA, Local 60.
So I think you're talking about the federal work to address police accountability. Look, I am very specifically and very clearly not for any ability for people to go after individual officers. I am for accountability in police departments. So I do believe if there is a systemic problem, whether it's at the municipal, county, or state level, that there should be accountability there. And I do think that I think I agree with all of you, that if there are bad police officers, if there are structural problems in police departments which make every police officer look bad, that should be addressed and people should have accountability for that.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, good morning. Michael
Morning.
here with the Union County Sheriff's Office, PBA 108. So just to follow up with the illegal immigration, we all know that legal immigration also sends healthcare costs through the roof. What is your job with your forensic audit that you're going to, because I could just streamline it for you. If we work on the crisis that's going on here in the state, being a sanctuary state, that would start bringing a lot of the costs down. So what's your plan?
So the plan specifically long-term is to make sure, and I just want to address a little bit about what you're talking about and what my concerns are about what's going on in this state. So for example, the president's announced they're going to have ICE detention facilities on McGuire-Dix. The reason I'm opposed to that is because on other bases across the nation, in order to fund that, they're taking money away from our troops, their housing, their support on their bases. So that's why I'm opposed to that. We don't have, you don't put people in private detention facilities here in New Jersey because private detention facilities are known to be run very poorly. They're known to have huge issues. They're known to not treat people well. And GEO, which is running the private detention facility here, has been at the forefront of a lot of complaints and federal litigation. So that's why I'm opposed to that. As far as working with ICE, I think there are spaces where you do that, where people are breaking the law, and we need to make sure we're handling that, but also where there are people being picked up, who are being picked up without charges, some of whom are American citizens. That is where I'm drawing the line, because I have done an incredible amount of work with law enforcement in the communities we serve. It was very important at the U.S. Attorney's Office and at the AG's office in the aftermath of the NYPD spying on mosques here in New Jersey that we ensured that we had a relationship with Muslims in this state to ensure that if there were crimes being committed in large parts of our state, that they knew that they were able to come to law enforcement and report those crimes and would be treated fairly. That is what I see as an important piece of policing here in New Jersey. If you're talking about the state health benefits plan, I'm happy to look into, again, where we are putting our funding, and if it is not going to the correct people, all of you here, into the state health benefits plan, I don't believe those funds are going to undocumented people. If I am incorrect, I am happy to address that. I think you're talking about Medicaid funds, but I could be wrong on that. So I'm happy to take a look at that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Lee Sutherland, Local 183, the Essex County Sheriff's Office. My question to you is, how are we going to combat all this juvenile crime? It's violent. They're gathering up in mobs. Last Saturday alone, my department, along with Newark PD and East Orange PD, had to deal with 500 kids throwing things at us. And then earlier in the year, a juvenile murdered one of the Newark officers. How are we going to combat this? Every time we arrest them, they get let back out. The youth house is a disaster. There has to be something going on here. It's ridiculous. They know that we can't do anything to them. They're disrespectful. They're violent, carrying guns, stealing cars every night. Every night they're stealing cars.
So I think we do have a real crisis here. I think it's been led by several things, according to the police chiefs in my district. Some of it is the new laws regarding cannabis, which have impacted the laws regarding juvenile drinking, which we have to address and make sure the regulations are better. Yes, I think this Attorney General does not properly address youth violence or the ability to charge either the youth or their parents. I think we see repeat offenders. We've certainly seen it in my district with car thefts, where there seemed to be sort of a catch and release program going on, and we would keep picking up the same underage people. I did agree with Senator Bucco and Senator Cody's plan to push more into some of the ringleaders of this, but we also have to then handle some of the youth violence going on. We've seen kids as young as 13 years old stealing cars, and so we really have to make sure that they're not doing that again. They're putting themselves and the whole community at risk. You're obviously talking about the boardwalk issues. I think we have to address youth detention facilities. Right now, as you said, they're overcrowded and they don't have enough capacity, so we have to address a statewide strategy, whether it's building more, expanding there. And then we have to, I think, push in on what the rules and regulations are for all of you, because right now it's my understanding from speaking to police in my district that there's a sense that you can't charge underage people here in this state, and that's got to end, because as you said, they are really committing a lot of incredibly violent crimes that are putting a lot of people in danger.
Just to follow up, I mean, you live in Montclair, so you understand the issues we run into in Essex County. They're kicking doors in. They're carrying firearms. Like, this is legitimately out of control. And then
Yeah.
we can't do anything. God forbid you chase a car or anything like that, and then we're handcuffed.
Right. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think there's various things going on across the state that all revolve around youth violence. You see in Montclair, it's car thefts. You see young people breaking into houses routinely, putting people in danger, having firearms, and then if they do get a hold of a car, very young, driving 100 miles an hour with their 9-year-old sister or brother in the back seat. We've seen all of this. It's really dangerous, and it's got to end. And it doesn't get resolved by not charging them and releasing them, or charging them, releasing them, and never doing, having any punitive response to that, A. B, you're seeing what's going on down the shore. Some of that's involving some of the cannabis regulations or lack thereof that's impacting, that you can't, how you can't charge, how there's not really good regulations on underage use. And then it's impacting the alcohol regulations so that nobody's getting charged for that. We also have a problem with THC, totally unregulated. That's being sold in 7-Elevens, and that's hemp. It's not cannabis, so that is totally unregulated. So there's an across-the-board regulatory problem, and there is a lack of punitive measures on young people, which unfortunately we need to address.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Phil Ritz, Camden County Corrections, 351. I see you talking about police. My question concerning corrections. Are jails being shut down, lack of staff due to the way the regulations in the state are and how they're charging for for tests or whatever it might be? They're talking about regionalization in some of these counties. What's your stance on that? I mean, we have some counties that are just hubs now and other counties that they're talking about shutting down. And the capacities in other counties are so high that they don't have enough staff to cover them. What's your stance on the jails?
Yeah, we're having capacity issues everywhere, youth and otherwise, and then there's talk of shutting down prisons. So I want to see the strategy. If we're going to shut down prisons, then we need to be understanding how we're opening up capacity elsewhere, and I don't think that's happening. So my stance on it is we need a no-kidding number of beds that we need to have with capacity, and before you shut down any prisons, you need to have a plan for how you're going to add capacity elsewhere in the state. So it's to me a strategy issue, but I would be against shutting down any prisons without a plan for capacity elsewhere.
But now you have some jails that are already shut down that could be reopened to make more capacity and take some of the strain off of the facilities that are already there. What's the deal? What's the strategy on opening those back up before trying to regionalize and cost the taxpayers more money by having to transport these inmates across the state at some point?
What I would be looking for is making sure we are housing prisoners in a safe way so that departments of corrections officers are not put in danger by doing that, but also looking at the low-cost alternative. it might be that reopening those prisons is more costly than expanding elsewhere, building new, but that's what my strategy would be, is if we're expanding capacity, what is the safest and lowest cost way of doing that?
Okay, and then follow up to that, and you said about the safety of the corrections officers. Us as corrections inside the jails are handcuffed on the discipline that's handed down for the inmates that are in there that are continuous problems. They punch an officer in the face, they can only be not disciplined, but housed in a disciplinary unit for a certain amount of time, or our facility's breaking the Attorney General guidelines for it. Whereas 5 years ago, they were locked in for however many days. They'd come out, punch an officer in the face because they knew they couldn't get locked in again. What's the plan with that as well?
Mm-hmm. I think you're touching on a couple different issues. One is the problem with mental health issues throughout our prisons. And so, for example, the head of the Cook County Prison in Chicago a couple years ago was a psychiatrist, and she said that was really appropriate because she was the largest housing for people with untreated mental health problems. So I think you're talking about mental health issues in some of the population, and we were seeing, and wait, give me one.
No,
I let you talk. Can I just finish? And you're talking about people who were being put in isolation and having psychotic breaks and the problems related to that. So that is an issue that needs to be handled. You're also talking about people who want to be in isolation who are now creating, like throwing feces at you because they want to be put in different detention facilities because they don't want to be in general population. So that's an issue. And then you're talking about the truly violent people who need to be disciplined and can't be simply let to go in the general population or make you unsafe. So those are quite a few different issues. I think, unfortunately, instead of taking a scalpel to addressing the separate issues that you have in your prison population, what's happened at the AG's office is you've sort of just taken a hammer to the system and said, stop doing this type of punishment. That's not how I want to see it. This is why when I work with anyone in the community, but especially law enforcement, it's an iterative process, meaning I go back and forth with them. When I first had people in my district come to me saying, we need your help on car thefts, it's a real problem, and this is what we're seeing. We worked with them. We came up with a plan. We said, okay, here's how we're going to address it. They said, no, that's not going to work. So that's how we came up with the ALPR thing, which I could do at a federal level, deliver an earmark for it. So there are several issues here. I think we have to address them to keep Department of Corrections officers safe, to house people better so that you can better control and manage them, and to also address some of the untreated mental health issues that are going on. And I'm happy to do all of that with you, but I need you at the table to explain exactly what's going on in the prison system and where the cracks are, what's working and what's not working, and how we go back and address it. And what you would need in a modern facility to keep yourself safe and to keep the population safe.
Thank you.
Thanks.
These are the last two questions. She's got to go, so we just told her that she's on time constraint. So last two right here.
How you doing? Keith Curry, Local 285. Do you support civilian review boards specifically with subpoena power?
Not with subpoena power.
Do you support civilian review boards?
Without subpoena power, yes.
You do. I mean, we have a tremendous amount of oversight already, especially with PTC and body cams and everything else. Do you think it's necessary?
I don't know if it's as much about necessary for oversight. I think it's necessary to bring the community into the table to be partners with law enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
How's it going? Ron Osadis, Aberdeen Local 163. I just had a quick question. So everyone, the popular opinion is to talk about civilian review boards or police accountability. 99% of us in this room and on this job are good, law-abiding people. The media loves to take one bad apple and splash it all over the news. The question that I have is more for bail reform. I'm a detective in Aberdeen. We locked up someone for carjacking. He was released 3 days later. 2 months later, committed a homicide in Hazlitt. What is your plans for bail reform? I'm kind of done hearing about police accountability. We're all good cops. I want to hear more about bail reform. So what's your plan to combat and address bail reform specifically?
So bail reform, to me, speaks of the problem with criminal justice reform. I'm a believer. right? I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office. We worked on a reentry court to try to help people successfully reenter communities so they didn't reoffend. We keep people safe. I'm all for breaking the school to prison pipeline. I think it's great. After, summer youth employment, we've studied, it works really well in some areas, making sure we have high intensity tutoring, for example. What bail reform, the problem there is, yes, there was a cited problem. With bail, you're often taking a lot of money out of very poor communities in a way that's not always helpful. But you also need to have people held accountable, showing up for their court dates. And so what I see in too many cases with criminal justice reform is you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You're saying, I don't like this process, so I'm going to get rid of this process, but I'm not putting anything in its place to keep us safe and to keep people accountable. So that is my problem right now with bail reform. If you want to reform that process, you've got to have a new process to put in place. I think what we've done is we've taken away the process and not laid out a new problem. So we're having all kinds of problems with people showing up for their court dates, and you're citing one of the key, one of the horrible examples of what happened there. So I would like to understand better, if we are going to reform the system, what is going to hold people accountable. And thank you.
If you just went back to the old way, if people show up to court, you get your money back. Doesn't that work?
I think what you're seeing in too many cases is money being taken out of communities for periods of time that's really difficult for people, and they go to loan sharks and they have high interest rates.
Okay.
And so, well, they're not committing the crimes, they're the moms of people committing crimes. I mean, I'm just saying, you're going into communities, you're telling family members to all come up with all this money. The way they do it is they often go to loan sharks, they're paying a huge interest rate, and you're taking
Or they could
money
follow
out
the
of
law.
community.
They could just follow the law.
I'm really concerned. I'm concerned that you're not more concerned about some of the people you serve, because I'm not talking about the lawbreakers. I'm talking about the community members. I'm talking about the people that are trying to get better results. And I know that you all care deeply about this because I've worked with so many of you. So I'm just saying, in not trying to think of better ways of doing this, I think we're leaving some options on the table with our communities. However, I agree with you that the current just getting rid of it is not working. And so I want to reform that. If it's going back to the old way of doing business, if we can't come up with a better path, sure, but why would we not want to try? That's where I'm coming from. So I really appreciate you guys taking time with me today. I'd love to keep the conversation open, and thank you very much for having me.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you guys for the great questions that you asked to Mikie Sherrill, the Congresswoman running for governor. I like the fact that you guys gave her the right questions, the timely questions, the questions that we needed to ask. These are all the things that we've discussed with her privately. We've also discussed these topics with the Republican candidate, Jack Ciattarelli, who is walking in the door right now.
That's it for today's episode of Union Strong NJSPBA Voices Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to follow the podcast and share it with fellow members so we can keep these important stories and updates reaching everyone who needs to hear them. We'll be back soon with more news, interviews, and insights that matter to New Jersey law enforcement. Until next time, stay informed, stay united, stay Union Strong.